Welcome, everybody, to Responsive Web Design. I'm your guest, Josh. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about responsive web design concepts. We've been doing less, okay? So we've been doing preprocessors up until this point. It's unique, by the way, to CS6 and CS7. That's why these videos are recorded and put into Piazza. They're not for everybody because CS8 might get this in a different order than you do. And so it's very tailored to you, and that's obviously why we come and do these things. So I just wanted to preface that information for you. All right, so let me bump over to the window that I purposely closed everything. I can't, where'd it go? All right, maybe it's not picking it up again. Sometimes it does not pick it up. Sorry. Okay, man, I feel like I need to start over now. Where the heck's my browser? Gosh, it's not showing up in here. Sorry. Got it. Okay, I guess I had to close it and open it. Okay. We are looking at the good line again. And we're going to talk about the responsive nature of this site versus some other sites. So one of the first things we have to understand about responsive web design, okay, so responsive means that it's responding to the environment around it and adjusting the visualization. So for example, we have a grid here. This is a custom grid, right? So we have 3, 1, 2, all sorts of stuff, and we have to account for these in the layout. And so as we drop our scroll, so our boxes readjust. The crazy thing is, it feels like they're just readjusting on their own. I'll give you the link. I know it's hard to type the good line. I really do. So if you want to go check it out yourself and kind of scroll with me, I think this is an important visualization for you to understand. So go ahead, hit the link. They're going to think, oh man, we got popular today. So good job, everyone, making somebody feel good on the marketing team. So you're going to take this and you're going to kind of squeeze it a little bit, expand it a little bit, and notice that the nature of this site is very fluid. Okay? It feels like this site, you could do no wrong with the browser size because it just keeps adjusting even to the craziest size and still kind of fits. And then you'll notice that when we get to a super tiny size, we are now in a phone view. And so what we've done is we've hit a media query, right? We've talked about that. But in this case, what happened is everything readjusted and reorganized itself to be inside of a single column. Notice that all these images in the grid that used to be like 2 pieces long and 1 piece long, now they're all uniform, okay? And so, of course, it's still, it gets to a point, by the way, where it's just too small. And we don't need to worry about it because some of the smallest phones out there that maybe the company is supporting just don't even reach this level. So that breakpoint is what's causing this magic to happen down to a phone. And of course, if we open it up again, that is a crazy picture I always forget about. But this kind of stuff is what we want to aim for. So tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down how to build a fluid layout like this. That'll be tomorrow. Today, we're going to be focusing on an adaptive layout. So an adaptive layout is one that doesn't actually have percent-based features. So like right now, if you look at the forest up here, you can see that we're actually getting smaller and the image is getting smaller. We're going to do that tomorrow. But today, we're going to introduce breakpoints. All right, so before we get really deep into that, we have to understand a little bit about the browser and like what's going on. So I'm going to give you a link. This is just a website that talks about browser market share, and they claim they've whoa, that's a crazy filter. Sorry. I don't know why that's on. But they claim that they've taken out bots and they've taken out a lot of things that kind of skew internet stats. And so right here, this link allows us to see basic they're like an ad network. And so they have a lot of data they're pulling from. In fact, you can look at their methodology. They tell you where it comes from and like how they get this stuff. If you're really interested in that, go ahead and look at the methodology and learn more about it. But look at this. The data is compiled from approximately 100 million valid sessions per month. That's crazy. Like that's a huge amount of, that's good data. So we can use this as good data. All right. What I mean by that is we can look at this and say, you know what, it's probably pretty accurate if there's a 100 million sessions a month being chunked right here. Okay. So if we look at the data, we see that Chrome right now has the highest share, at least on their network that they're sniffing, of 58.90%. That's extremely high. So Chrome is dominating the market, at least in this spot. Firefox 13, Explorer 13, Edge, the newest browser. So what's interesting is that Internet Explorer does not die. It just keeps on chugging. It's the saddest, most impressive thing in the world as far as technology goes. Interestingly enough, check out Safari though. Safari is like not as much as you probably thought, because a lot of people are realizing that you can do so much with Chrome, and then Firefox has actually made a resurgence. This is very recent. So the cool thing is with this website is you can actually change your filter. But of course, if you try to get really cool information, like, oh, what's the resolution on phones? They're like, oh, you gotta pay us for that information. That makes sense. But and then of course we have the world browsers, is what I call them, outside the United States, really. So Sogo, Opera is huge in Europe, especially Opera Mini. QQ, UC browser is really big. I think it's big in Africa right now. And then Yandex, I'm not really sure what Yandex is actually. Oh, it's a popular Russian search engine, Russian Google. That's cool. Thanks, Ronnie. And then, of course, you can keep going. Just so you know, there are more browsers in this world. Look at that. There's 4 pages of browsers. Oh, check it out. BlackBerry. Oh, no, it's 0%. Never mind. RIP. BlackBerry. So we still have these that are being used, though. And Opera Mobile as well. Okay. So these are really important pieces of data for us to consider when we develop really cool new technology. Because remember, if we do the can I use, it gives us a really nice layout of the browsers that support a certain thing. So let's say, can I use media queries? Or at media. I wonder if that's what it is here. There we go. So media queries are really just supported. There are some issues, though, where looks like here supports the non-standard min-max device pixel ratio. That's pretty intense. But for what we're going to do, we're going to use max and min. We're not going to go crazy. Okay, so 100% covered in Chrome, Firefox, Edge, IE, iOS. So these are kind of the main ones that we're going to target in the United States, at least. So this is why, by the way, like I hate sometimes when people will make anecdotal decisions and say, well, we got to do this because, you know, Bob's uncle told me. I was like, what? No, we got to look at the data. And so it's great to look at the data here and say, well, we should really be focusing on Chrome, but we have to be really well aware of Firefox, IE, and Edge, and even Safari. Remember, these percentages are percentages of 100 million. So that's a lot of people, okay? 3.42% of 100 million in a month. It's quite a bit of people. So just perspective. A lot, like we're talking hundreds of thousands of people are still using these browsers. Okay, so now that we have a perspective dump, we understand we're lucky that we live in an age and a month where Chrome is dominating, because Chrome has a really just an awesome subset of tools that we're going to talk about. So that's our market. We need to understand that. When it comes down to devices like iPhones, tablets, whatever, Android devices, that really is dependent upon your local company, wherever you work at, their analytics. So if you want to sound really smart and just confident, when people are like, well, if you ever hear anybody talk about what's the width we should do, you say, oh, have we checked the Google Analytics lately and checked out the resolution? Because in Google Analytics, you can actually go look at the real resolution of visitors that are coming to your site. And, Google Analytics, by the way, this could be completely upside down. I talked about a company where I worked at where we were selling medical alert systems to the elderly. And so the browsers flip-flopped. So like IE was number one, and Chrome was like on the bottom of the barrel because of the user group that we were approaching. And so if I was like, no, we're going to use the latest, greatest Chrome and forget everybody else in IE, we would have lost a massive portion of our group of people that we were trying to code for. So you have to be very critical in your thinking about why you're doing this. So for us to be critical, we're going to code our stuff for the masses. So the masses right now, according to net market share, are using Chrome, so we're going to stay in Chrome. So anyway, that's not a side note. It's like why responsive even exists is because all these browsers in different devices. So I wonder if we can look at devices. Let's see, mobile. So check this out. In Chrome, it's still number one, but Safari is number two if we switch the filter to mobile. And then UC Browser and Opera Mini. So you can see these are highly used, more than the Android browser. But Android has switched over to Chrome as their default for their latest devices, so that's why it's getting a bigger jump. But Safari has a much bigger market here. So you have to consider that as well when you're coding for the full gambit of devices. There's so much to consider. I just want to open your minds to these concepts that your little experience on your phone and your computer is not something that you need to like anecdotally say is the rest of the world. Make sure you go check out like a net market share or there's a ton of other sites you can look at for browser share, but this is really important to understand. Really quick, why is Opera so big in Europe? That's because I think that's where it originated. So it just had a groundswell from there, and more people used it. Opera is actually a pretty cool experience, though. They have a lot of really cool features for browsing. So, but I can't give you the best answer there. All right, so going back to what this is the why. This is our foundational piece of why. Let's talk about the viewport. Okay, so here's W3 Schools, everybody's favorite site to learn from. So HTML5 introduced a method to let web designers take control of the viewport. So we have to understand that the viewport and the window are two kind of separate ideas. So right now, in this screen, you're seeing from corner to corner, everything inside this edge is going to be our viewport. Okay, it's because anything that's inside this is visible, so it's our viewport. Now, the interesting thing about viewport, that's why I came here, is because there's a really good example. If you don't have the viewport declared, and you try to view this on a mobile device, like an actual device and not just a browser, you'll look like this, because the viewport is thinking it's on a desktop, so it keeps showing you the desktop version. So once you actually inject or just copy and paste the viewport inside your HTML, you actually get this look because it's now adjusting to the width of the device. So let's go look at that. Right here, it's a meta tag. So those of you that are like kind of, a little rusty on your HTML, don't worry about this because you basically copy and paste it once and you forget about it. But you need to learn about what it does. So the meta tag is named viewport, all right? And the content, this is saying what should the content be? Well, we're saying it should be equal to the width and the device width. Sorry, the device width, holy cow, should be equal to the width of the viewport. So what that means is down here, if we don't have the viewport, this is just saying, like some phones have like 2000 resolution, right? And so without the viewport, this thing doesn't know what to do. But with the viewport, it accounts for the resolution and the viewport inside of the device and fills up all the content inside of it to match the device width. So that's what this is. This is really important. Initial scale 1.0. So you know on your phone how you can pinch and zoom? That is called a zoom. And so what we do with the viewport is we set the initial zoom to 1.0, which is non-zoomed, okay? So the initial scale 1.0 means the zoom is set to its default value. So viewport width device is equal to width, initial scale 1.0. This is really important to understand one time. After you've understood this, you kind of just need to set it on the shelf and you're good to go. And so Eric asks, sorry, you're not actually dealing with pixels. That's right, we're dealing with viewports. And so the viewports, for example, on your Retina display, you know, iPhone 10 or something, the iPhone 10 still has a different viewport that renders out differently than the iPhone 8 or, you know, Samsung Galaxy. Yeah. So the question is, like 30 pixels isn't actually going to be 30 pixels. Right. It's going to be 30 pixels inside of the viewport that we set, which is going to be based on the width, right? So it's really interesting. That's why I'm saying this is conceptual. These are new concepts. Okay. What part of the project would this code go in? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Let me show you. So what we're going to do is I'll show you my VS Code. Oh, wow. It's like super big. Let me take it down a notch. There we go. All right. So notice that I have the viewport that we just reviewed right here. So, whoa, did not mean to do that. So after the character set, I've put in my meta name equals viewport content. Not equals, sorry. Oh, I want to say assign the value of, because it's an assignment operator. Content, assign the value of width is assign the value of device dash width, initial scale 1.0. So everything we just talked about is right here. Now, in your challenge this afternoon, I've already included this for you. I didn't want this to be kind of a gotcha because there's so much stuff we have to do. So I've included it for you, but you have to understand that it's there and it's why a lot of this stuff even functions and even works. Otherwise, we're going to experience that look that we saw on the W3 School page. Okay, so it goes in the head after the meta tag, preferably before your title and link, just so you can see it. But ultimately, that stuff doesn't really matter, but just to keep it clean. All right, so that is our first step to understanding the beginnings of media queries and what we're going to be doing with them. So now let me show you in this project how we're going to attack and use media queries to change things around. So I'm going to go to my mixins.less. Notice I named it that because I felt like variables was not as intuitive. So it's just a little update. And notice that I also have, let me zoom in here. I also have some less escaping. Remember this? So at phone, tilde, and then we have our string. Max width, 400 pixels. So remember, max width and min width are totally different. So let's take a little break over to CodePen and talk about max width and min width really quick, and then we'll come back to the example. So I'm going to change my screen over real quick. We're going to jump over to, not the good line, CodePen. We're just going to start from scratch. Now, I think it would be wise for us to continue using less just because we have been using it. And so I think it'd be a good idea to keep using it. I'm going to throw a reset on there, save, close. So at this point, I have zoomed way in. And we're just going to do a simple box. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to code along with me once I get this to you. So I just want to start with one simple div. That's how simple this is going to be at the beginning. So everybody go ahead and open that up, and we're going to code this together. So I've just given you a little demo of viewports. I'm going to bring in the escaping string again, just because I want to keep us current. So let me put that in there as well. So go ahead and just refresh, and you will see this code, and we'll talk about it again. You need to really, if you're kind of not paying attention, refocus, because this is really going to be the crux of your assignment today. And you really don't want this to be a concern for you when you're coding, because it'll drive you crazy if you don't. Okay. I think everybody should be there by now. So with me, go ahead and open up your div here. And let's write an H1. So H1 tab will autocomplete. I still recommend just typing things out for muscle memory exercises. And we'll just say, I am a box. So we have a box down here, but clearly we have no box looking items around our HTML. So what I want to do is we're going to actually build this box together. So let's do it together. Remember, it's a class, so .box. Okay, so type that out with me. We've now referenced the box, right? Because dot is a class. Simple stuff. Now, to get the box to show up, though, we need to have a width. So let's say width 300 px and height 300 px. Now, right now, the box does not have anything still because we don't have a background or anything to show that it is there, but it really is there. So the way we can know that is to say background, background, green. You can do whatever color you want. So at this point, we have a big old, 300 is probably too big for my screen, so I'm going to jump it down to 100. Okay. So at this point, everybody's going, yeah, I get it. Okay. So the cool thing is I want you to inject and utilize. I use the word inject because I feel like it makes sense, but copy and paste works too. But I want you to be able to use the example usage up here. So in your code pen, scroll up, and I gave you an example usage of how we can use the escape strings. Now, yes, this is reviewed, and I'm going really slow because it's that important. Okay. So right here, we have some elements. In our case, are some elements going to be box, right? So we're going to say at media tablet, and we're going to bring it down, and we're even going to include phone. So I'm going to copy that, come down here, and I'm going to paste that. Now, because I pasted it, it kind of jumped in. So I'm going to just hit Shift Tab, and it's going to bring it back so it's nice and pretty and maintains the visual hierarchy of the nesting that I like. So everybody get to this point. I'll give you 10 seconds here to get to this point. Remember, I went up here and I copied this. I brought it down and I pasted it into box. Okay, so notice how our box has a fixed width at this point. It's 100 px. Also notice that on my tablet, and by the way, this should look like this. We want to have, just to maintain the understanding of what's going on here. It really doesn't matter. These are just variables, but laptop, tablet, and phone represents the cascade. So I think that's smart to have it in that order just for your mental sanity. So remember, we could easily do this. Just as a side note, we could just as easy say at media max width, 700 px, and then introduce a media query. Like, remember, we can do that with less, but look how much more you had to write. So I love escaping strings and just being more intuitive and saying, oh yeah, tablet, that makes sense. So this is the same thing as this. I don't want any confusion there, okay? I'm using escaping because it's just prettier and it's easier to read over time because this is really chunky. So I'm going to delete it, but it's the same thing. Okay, so tablet width 100. Now, I'm going to hit save. So if you haven't caught up, you want to go get the thing and you haven't forked it yet, you got this. But I'm going to keep moving forward. So at 768 pixels, I'm going to readjust my viewport on my window. So I don't know if you can see it. There's a little thing down here. Watch this. It tells you how big the viewport is. So I'm at 800, 790, 769. There it is, 768. So at 768, I have now gone from a fixed width of 100 px to a percent width at the tablet level. Okay, so none of these concepts or none of these like syntactical things are new to you. But what we've done now is we've introduced tablet at a max width. So by the way, that means this will work from 768 pixels and down. Write that down if you need to. So max width is the pixel value and down, like further down to the device. And we're going to switch this and change it to min width in a second, but we need to understand this concept for the assignment. Max width down. Okay. Now, what we've done is we've said, okay, at media, at phone, width 50%. So now, before I do anything, I always want to theory craft and say, okay, what's going to happen when I hit my phone? So that means at 400 px, so when I resize this browser at 400 px, I have now said width 50%. So I'm going to theory craft that right down the middle of this viewport, I'm going to see the box go half the screen at 400 px. All right, so I'm going down, 600, 500, 400, almost there, boom. Let's check it out. My theory was correct. It's nice to be validated once in a while. So 50% on 400 px, but now that's because the phone has different requirements. The phone is super tiny. And so these kind of things, that's why we need to have multiple breakpoints, okay? Now notice that because I'm using 500% and 100%, I'm 100% fluid like right now. It's going to adjust in that small window right there. And that's fine. We're not still a percent based just yet because our desktop is still a fixed 300 px, right? Okay, so what I want you to do now, and we're going to just use 5 minutes. We're not going to use 10 minutes here. But what I want you to do now is introduce a couple more boxes, okay? So I want you to take these boxes and just bring them in. What I want you to do is add an additional class. So for example, box one. And so then I want you to go down here, say box one, and then I want you, without me, to go add a media query to each one of these boxes. Okay, so get in the practice of it. I want you to go in and add box 2, box 3 on your own. So I'm going to hit save right now. And I want you to go and I want you to make all 3 of these boxes a different width when we get to our laptop. So use the laptop escaping. So come down here. Remember, copy and paste laptop. So see how that's popping out? So what I want you to do is I want you to do that for all 3 boxes and change the color as well. And so you can actually do different things for box 1, box 2, and box 3. So obviously I messed up here and that should be box 1. Okay, so I'm going to delete that because this is your little challenge. So your challenge here is to make these 3 boxes grow in different widths. And then I want to be able to get a couple examples from you when you're done. And then we'll look at all different ones and we'll see what everybody's done with tablet and phone. So because you've been, let's see. Do you want 10 minutes or do you want 5 minutes? How do you feel? 5? Okay. Anybody else? 5? Okay. Let's do 5 minutes. Everybody get started. I don't see Google timer 5 minutes. Let's just see what we can do in 5 minutes. So here we go. The CSS should be saved, by the way. So if you go to the link, it should be ready to go. Okay, time is up. So before I get into some of the examples from you all, let me answer a little bit of the questions. So I can see that there's good discussion going on here, and this is exactly what I wanted to see with max width and min width. And again, we're gonna flip over to min width after this so we can understand both. But max width, remember, is at the pixel and below. Okay, so let's let's go through this example. Let me accomplish what you were supposed to accomplish. So at this point, remember, I asked you to look at laptop as well, and then you could do whatever you wanted for phone and tablet. So for box one, to accomplish this, I would have had to do something like this: at media, at laptop, right? That was the goal, is to have a little critical thinking there and say, okay, what do I need to do? Then you could do whatever width you wanted. So everybody's going to be different. I could say 60% for laptop. But notice that when I go above 1100, so this is above 1100, right? Because remember, that number is not magical. It's right here from my escaped variable. So max with 1100. Now I'm saying, okay, at 1100 and below. So get that in your heads. Max width is at the number and below, right? Okay, so I don't get why max width takes priority for the smallest width, but min width doesn't take priority for the largest min width. Okay, so you know what? Don't worry about that. Let's focus on min width in a second, Michael, and I think it might make more sense, but we'll see. So at this point, and it could be just weird naming convention, by the way, max width. You just have to follow the rule, which kind of sucks sometimes when you're learning syntax. You just have to go, okay, some person said max width one time and it's stuck forever. I mean, because we are humans. So again, we're above 1100, so it's not kicking in. And now I'm going to go down to 1100. Boom, there's 60% of the screen. And then on tablet, 768, boom, it goes full. And then, of course, on phone. And, of course, I have this thing running, so it's probably a good idea to kill box because these media queries need to be unique to the class. So I'm going to kill those. So if you want to follow along with me, I deleted the media queries. Let me undo that. I deleted these just because box is the parent. Well, it's not really the parent class, but it's the older sibling. So right here, box, and then box one. All right, let's go down to box two and do the same thing. So I'm going to widen the screen here a little bit. I'm going to say, okay, box two. Box two. And then box two, I'm going to mess with these values a little bit more, and I'm going to change the background color. So let's go with, and by the way, the reason I always do background is because it is less specific. So let's make it red, but it's less specific than background dash color. You might have noticed that and maybe questioned that. That is because I like using the shorthand version of background, because background actually has way more options than color. Background color has one option, it's the color. With background, we could actually introduce a URL. Well, that's auto-completing like crazy. We could introduce a repeat. We could, we can do a ton of stuff with background, and so I like it because you can use it later. But for now, it just does one thing. But if you want to be really specific, background color is more specific. Okay, so there's my box two. It's red, so it's easier to see. I didn't put my class on here yet, though. So box two needs to be on my HTML. Box three, okay. So with box three, I'm going to adjust these widths around. So it's going to be like, just going to mess with this 10% on tablet. And then on phone, we will go 100% on this one. So I'm just repeating, guys. Like, look at the pattern. Okay, focus on the pattern here. Don't get caught up in the weeds of tons of code, right? Because now all of a sudden our code just got really big. Like, whoa, well, it's just a pattern. We're taking the same thing and we're repeating it, right? Now, some of you might go, well, what about don't repeat yourself, like the dry principles of programming? Well, we need to have box 2 have unique styles compared to box 1 and box 3. So we're not repeating ourselves that way. And syntactically with our media queries right here, they have to be unique because on laptop, box 2 has to have a unique width on it. And that's why I'm not repeating myself. This is the first time this was introduced ever in the app, but it's very robust language. So now I'm going to go down here. I'm going to do box 3. And I'm going to say purple. And I'm going to go, let's say 9, let's go 10%. We'll go over here and we'll say 65. And on phone, we'll go 24, whatever. All right, now let's go see this mess that I've created. Oh, I got to make sure that I change this to box 3. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to minimize. Remember, this is a great exercise if you're ever lost. Minimize all your selectors. So box 1, box 2, box 3. Like when you think about it that way and you see you're escaping, oh, that's not that bad. But while you're working on it, it can get a little overwhelming. So box 1 right now maintained its green color, right? So that's why it's green. Box 2, I changed it to red. Box 3, I changed it to purple. Okay, so let's go look at this. Right now, if I take it all the way out, above 1100, we're hitting our 300 that's coming from box, right? Or sorry, our 100. I don't know why I keep saying 300. So box width is at 100 pixels. This is true 1100 pixels and above, okay, because of max width. Now I'm going to bump it down below 1100, so 1100. So now 1100 kicks in because remember, I'm using my max width escape string. And on box 1, I said at media laptop, which by the way, if we look at the compiled code, we're wrapping a media query around box 1 and we're saying width 60%. Okay. Now some people might say, dude, you're introducing 3 media queries and this is a ton of code. And really the answer is, yeah, I am. And the other option would be in normal CSS without all this awesome nesting and stuff. We would have to actually say at media, and then we'd have to introduce our string up here like as it normally is. So we would say 1100 px. Then we would have to reintroduce the box, the whole chains. We'd have to say box if we're using our nesting. And then I would say, well, in box 1, I have to say box 1. And then I'd have to do this. And then I'd have to recreate the media query chain again for each pixel. So then this is going to be 768. And then I would have to do the same thing for 400. The problem here, my friends, and this is why it's maddening to do it this way, is because you would have to write out the whole selector chain for the whole component or app every time. So in our example from Monday, you would have to rewrite every selector every time inside of here. And so this thing would just get just massive. Like there'd be so many selectors in here. And you'd have to make sure your nesting doesn't mess up. You have to make sure you're spelling, like you're rewriting everything. And so human error is why we avoid this, and also readability. Because the kilobytes that are introduced for the compiled CSS are so minimal, especially after you use a minifier and use gzip it for the internet. So you might be going like, you are adding anywhere from 20 to 30 lines of code. But at the same time, we are introducing a ton of media query blocks. But again, after you gzip, after you minify, it's not even worth the conversation. And if you get into an app that is that big, you have that much CSS, then you're using different approaches anyway. Like you're not even doing it normally like this. But for most of the stuff you're going to be working in the professional world, this is going to be just great. And of course, follow the standards of whatever company you're at. Like this is just an introduction to ideas and how they can work. But your company is going to have their own opinions. All right, so that was a little tangent, but I think it was very important because it's a professional tangent. You need to understand why we're doing those things. Okay, so we're at 1100. Let's go down to 7. Now notice we're percent. So notice how these lines are all kind of adjusting. We're actually introducing ourselves to a little bit of tomorrow's discussion, which is going to be fluid, but we're just not quite ready for the full discussion yet. So 768, we just hit a new breakpoint, right? So now we've hit tablet. And so now notice that my box 1 is 100% on tablet. So that's why it's 100%, and so on and so forth. Now let's go down to 400 and see what happens. Boom, 400. Pretty cool. So now all 3 of our boxes have done these things. Oh, sorry, I have to let go of that. I forgot. So there's 768. Okay. So let me address any questions really quickly. Okay, why did you write box 1 for the class in HTML? Can you call it just box 1 or box 2? The reason I did that is because I didn't want to rewrite all of the properties. Let's see, post code. So it should be the same code, Big Tony, that you've had. I will give it to you again, and then you can undo it again. So I just want to make sure that we understand CodePen is all you have to do is refresh after I hit save. So I've hit saved. So over here, box right there, width 100, height 100, background. The reason for that is I don't want to rewrite that every single time, right? I don't want to go in my box 1 and say, oh, okay, height, okay, down here, right? I'm using classes, like I'm using CSS, Cascade. So that is why I have box, and then I have box 1. Notice these are siblings, right? Like these are sibling selectors. This space between box and box 1 does not signify nesting. It is siblings, okay? So that space is really important. It actually matters a lot because it's saying that box is the older sibling, but you could say these are twins. And so box 1 came first and has different inheritance, but the second box 1, overwrites the box on the left because inheritance specificity weight, it's heavier on the right. Just like in Cascade, right? Cascading style sheets. This is the last declaration, therefore it is the heaviest. Okay, hopefully that answered your question, David. Okay, Eric. So I'm kind of seeing the question marks. That's why my brain's going to them. Oh, Aaron, looks like you figured it out. Oh, because you kept, yep, that's right. So why aren't you nesting the boxes inside the box class? It's the same thing I just talked about. So the box class nesting, I'm just using sibling selectors so I don't have to nest. I want to avoid nesting if I can because I want to avoid that 4D rule. So this is just being more explicit. This is the equivalent of a modifier or something. So we want to keep this thing on this level. We don't want to nest it if we can help it, because then we could use box 2 later on in another part of the code, right? Now this is a dumb example. Nobody's going to call their stuff box 2, I hope. But we could reuse this whole media query selector, for example, if we keep it outside and don't nest it. So that's the answer, Eric. Same questions regarding the files and the homework yesterday. Why aren't you nesting boxes? I think the same answer applies. So just, you want to avoid nesting more than 4 deep. And so these kind of tricks allow you to do that because you want to make sure things aren't so tightly coupled to the parent. Let's see, on yesterday's assignment, the max width was overriding the smaller ones when I resized the screen. Max width would overwrite from 1100 and down, so that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense why it would do that. Above 1100, it shouldn't be doing that though. Okay, let's see. So that's setting the default above the laptop max width, right? Yes, you are correct, Aaron. So right here on box, this is the default value with a max width understanding. I'm setting the default value on the original element. Good understanding there, Aaron. Big Tony, why do my boxes look different than yours? Whatever style you put on them, whatever you have on yours, that could be why. If we need help, we can bump out to a TA and they can look at it with you. But I think just stay here with me and keep watching this. Why aren't you adding the width and height for box 2 and 3? The reason I'm not is because box is handling that for me. So box up here, remember the sibling discussion we just had. Box already comes pre-baked with 100 height and 100 width. So that is why I'm not doing that. Yeah, that looks right, Tony. You just have to resize your window down and then you'll start seeing the changes. So that means your window's above 1100. Okay, so at this point, let's switch our brains to minimum width. So now we have all this code we wrote. Let's just actually change this and just see what happens. So min. So what we've done is we've flipped this on its head. And now we're saying anything at this number and above do this, okay? So anything at 1100 pixels and above, anything at 400 and above, okay? So let's go see what this looks like. So now with my giant screen here, I'm at 1200 pixels, and my min width has now taken my laptop. So for example, box 1 is 60% at 1100 and above. So now let's go to right where 1100 is. So I'm going to go to 1100 and above. So at 768, I'm coming down. Whoops. So the problem is with min width is that it's a mobile first approach. And so if we look at our min width right here on box 1, so our phone 50%. So let's show this for you. So 70%. Notice that min width is overriding everything because it's above it. It's above it. So our cascade is messed up right now because phone is up here, right? And so what we need to do is we look at this and our phone comes up here. But at 768, and by the way, this is how Bootstrap works, if you've ever been interested in that. So min width takes over and changes things. So notice that when we get down to our default value, we are now below 400 px. So this is called mobile first, all right? So mobile first means that when a designer gives you a design file and they start with the design file and they say, here you go, here's a sketch file or a PSD, and it looks like this. They would never do that, but there's these 3 ugly boxes. And then you say, okay, great. What does it need to look like on tablet? And they say, oh, well, on tablet it looks like anything above 400 pixels, it looks like this. So then we hit our tablet styles. And then we go, okay, great. What does it look like on desktop? And we keep going on. This is what it looks like on desktop. So that is called mobile first design. The problem is everybody talks about mobile first design like it's a sacred cow, like you can't touch it. You have to do mobile first design. But in reality, most designers are coming to their CEOs or CTOs or whoever's the decision maker, and they're coming with this big, beautiful desktop design. And they're like, look at my beautiful design. Do you want to approve this design? And then the big boss says, yes, it looks beautiful. Let's go forward with it. And so really what they do is they take the desktop design and they go, here you go, developer friend. I'm going to work on mobile, but here's the desktop. You can get started. That is not healthy, but that is really what a lot of agencies and small companies do. So that's the unfortunate real world sometimes, is that you have to actually start with max width, and min width is kind of a dream world where nobody really gives you a phone design first. Now, there are great companies out there that actually do this. They actually give you the phone design first, but not a lot of them do. So then you're kind of stuck with this weird thing where sometimes on phone you want it to min width all the way out, But here's the cool thing. You can actually use max width as well to kind of rein in both sides. And so you can actually use min width, 1100 pixels, and max width. Like you can actually use that syntax. But I want to kind of avoid that right now. It's just going to add a little bit confusion. I want to focus on just min or just max. And especially on this assignment for this challenge, let's keep living in max, okay? Because max makes sense. Tomorrow we're going to delve deeper into fluid layout, and we'll look at min width again. But for today's challenge and for like our mental sanity, let's maintain a max width. I know it's kind of hard to grasp the first time you're playing with it. Okay, let me look at some questions, make sure that we're following along. So you have to cascade the styles in reverse order, so you have to do the phone. Yes, that's exactly right. And so that's what we were doing over here. I need to put everything back, but because now we're max width again. But this one is a little bit different because it is max width. So I want to make sure I leave you with the best code and not like half thought code here. Okay. And white space. There we go. Okay, so Callum, so I changed mine to min width and it's still responding the ways you did without changing the order of the cascade of my CSS. So really, if number one, CodePen could be having issues. It's not perfect, but it's awesome. So I can't guarantee that if there's something weird going on with CodePen. But you would need to switch the cascade like I just did here. So phone, tablet stays in the middle, and then laptop goes to the bottom if you're using min width. So that could be it. Oh, John, it's because I have it highlighted. So sorry. Okay, with max width, it makes sense only specific tablet and phone since laptop. Yeah, I agree. It makes sense only specify tablet and phone since laptop with anything above. I agree. That is very true. But when we introduce percent-based layouts, you will want this. You will want laptop because there will be weird spots between 1100 pixels and 768. So then we'll have to introduce a laptop breakpoint. So that's why I'm introducing you to it now. Okay, at the top where we define at laptop at all, it doesn't matter which order they're in. It's just in the definition of subclass unless where we need to order them appropriately. I guess I'm a little confused by it. It's just in the definitions of each subclass unless we need. Oh, I'm saying the actual media query itself. But I would say, again, let's focus on max width. We'll jump more into min width next time. It's not like this hard thing to grasp, but it is hard when you start complicating layout items with it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to jump over and talk about how we would approach this in the assignment. And you're going, whoa, we have an hour left. That's how heavy this stuff can be. So we're gonna jump out of really comfortable, happy box land, and we're gonna go actually grab some real code and mess with media queries. Let me take a second to answer some questions. Let's see, and that if you want non-bug. Oh, nice. Okay, isn't it better to write a whole different CSS for desktop so you can include 3D and other heavy stuff and use a simple design for mobile? Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're doing though with your base styles, right? Like right here, I could write really heavy stuff here. And then as I introduce media queries, I'll chop out the heavy stuff. I can literally just override the style. So notice, and this is a good question, with 100px, box one is overriding that value. Like 100 is overwritten by 60%. So that's exactly what we're doing. So if you had some really crazy stuff that you wanted to hide, you could just override it to 0. So for example, let's say that on a tablet on box one, we actually just say, you're gone. So display none. So now, remember, we want a theory craft before we do it. So I put display none on tablet on box 1. I'm going to theorize that box 1, this first one, because I understand display none, will actually remove the box, and these boxes will move up in its place at tablet. So let's go see if that works. There we go. So I have now hidden box 1 with the display property. So in effect, I've done what you were talking about, which is removed a whole element based on a media query. So, and this is very common, by the way, to remove elements that don't jive. Maybe you had a designer that had like a crazy Flash intro or something, and then you want to display none on tablet. That's how you would do that. Now, some of you might be going, tablet actually, I could see a lot more styling happening here, and then phone would have even less styling on it. Maybe you've thought that. Maybe you haven't, and you're going, what? So the reality is, tablet's going to have the most styles put on it as far as adjustments for media queries. Hopefully phone has maybe 1 or 2 because you've already handled up here, right? So usually like box is going to stay at 100%, on a normal thing, on a normal project. But happy little box land, we're just goofing around with boxes and max width, so that's why we're being crazy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave happy little box land, and we're going to go into the real world. So it's going to be pretty fun. Any burning questions before we move on from this? I see Michael's writing something, so I'll wait and then we'll move on. While we're waiting, I'm going to save this, repost, just in case people are joining, not seeing it or don't want to go find the link. So there it is. That's what we just worked on. This should give you a nice little playground to approach your project with, because your project is basically this. And yes, I'm going to hydrate right now. There we go. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my VS Code as I wait for okay, so min width has to be used with max width, or has to be used only as beyond lab. No, min width is completely standalone. It's the mentality that we talked about, right? The mobile first mentality. That's where min width comes in. Max width is desktop first down to phone. So as we continue to work on this, just let that permeate in your head. And I can give you some more links to think about that and read. So, yeah, min width is not something I don't want to not talk about. It's just something that I want to focus on max width right now because it's going to help you get through this. I really just want you to understand media queries and then how they adjust things. And then when you have a good recommendation, or sorry, a good, I'm reading the chat. I need to stop reading chat. A good understanding of max width, at that point, you can go, okay, I'm going to go attack min width now. So that's the goal here. Do you recommend including 3.js in a canvas and desktop or tablet? It just, not really. I mean, it depends on what you want to do. So you can use libraries at your beck and call, but right now it's up to you. So I have no opinion on that. Okay, everybody, let's take a little breather here. Okay. Can you repeat how to order the media queries when using max width? So yeah, I can do that. You should be starting with laptop, then tablet, then phone. That should be the order in which you introduce your media queries with max width. All right. So in here, this doesn't matter, but I really need you guys to get this. Like, variables are lazy loaded. It does not matter when they're put in, okay? But I'm just going to reorder these variables because I can. There's nothing going on here with the cascade right here, okay? This does not matter. What does matter is when you actually get into your code, for example, on like a main content.less, it does matter where you put your media queries in here, okay? So let's be clear on that. Yeah, Troy Williams, great great process, like processing of thoughts there. Okay, so let me show you. This is the actual project. All right, this is, by the way, this is nothing you haven't seen before. It's the same project. Excuse me. We just finished. So this is nothing new. It's just going to be focused on media queries. So let me, this is going to be kind of annoying to switch between the desktop, the Visual Studio, and the browser. But my desktop is so massive that I don't want to mess with, you won't be able to see anything. So let's see. So what I want to show you is, I'll get these figured out quickly, and then I'm just going to cut down on some of these things. So here is the great and terrible great idea. Yeah, it's a 30, I think it's a 34 ultra wide. It's pretty good. So we have this innovation on demand, this website. So notice that there's a vertical scroll bar, right? So I've got my vertical scroll bar. There's nothing wrong with this. But check this out. As soon as I take it down to just a little bit smaller, now I have this annoying little horizontal scroll bar. This is no good because people don't naturally use their computers and go, oh, I wonder what the horizontal scroll bar is hiding. Oh, the logo, right? Like, it's just not smart. And so what we need to do is introduce some breakpoints into this project so that it actually kicks in at 768 and 400. Okay, so we're going to use the same breakpoints that we've been studying in our CodePen. So I want to make sure everything is congruent together. So to accomplish this, we need to add media queries at the proper area, right? So hopefully you're seeing this. Then look, we get down to this, and then here's, we can't even get to 400. It's too small. So let me show you some tools. So everybody open up your browser. Everybody open up, obviously you have a browser. You don't need to open this project, but if you want to be realistic, you could open up your project from yesterday. Just open the index file and follow along because it's going to be the same thing. So I'll give you 1 minute to, if you want to open this up, go find your project, go click the index file, and open it up. So let me give you a minute to do that. I want you guys to follow along with me on this one. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to look at these questions. Okay, for the variables and escapes, we define them all in the variables like yesterday and not in the individual modules of the less. Correct. We're going to define them in the mixins.less file, which I've introduced. If you're feeling Git savvy right now, you can go get the project and follow along if you want, but I don't want to take that time just for Git. Thank you. Thank you very much for posting that. Okay. So I've got the project open. Man, just so you know, responsive web design work. So it like almost triples or doubles the development time for a page. And you'll see why. You're going to see how intense this is. It's not hard. It's just a lot. Like, it's a lot of stuff that you have to do to make it look just so. And I think that's really the craft of a front-end developer and the software engineer is exactly what we're going to go and talk about right now. So let me introduce you to some really cool tools that you might have already known about, but we're going to expand upon your knowledge. So if you're following along with me, go ahead and right-click anywhere. I'm going to right-click on the title. And you'll notice if you're on Chrome, whether it's PC or Mac, and maybe Linux, I don't know, you hit the inspect button. All right. So one of the problems I'm having is I am already in a certain mode I don't want to be in. So I'm going to untoggle it, and then I'll show you how I got there. And I'm also going to put my dock in here so you can see it, because I had to taken my dock out because I like to spread things out and see everything. So in this case, when I'm inspecting elements, hopefully this is not your first time seeing this tool. Hopefully this is very common to you. One of the biggest things that helps me is, obviously you can mouse over these elements and see them. But then check this out. There's this really cool computed tab. If you've never seen this, this is really nice. It shows you the box model. So you can actually see the box model and see what's going on inside the box model. It's really intuitive and nice. Understand that computed is the final version of whatever styles you were given. So these are the final styles given to this element. So styles over here can sometimes be a little bit confusing because there's these lines through them. And so sometimes you're reading this code and you're like, wait, why did this font size get knocked out? Or why did this letter spacing get weird? Well, you can go to computed and find out what really happened. So let's say font style, or font family is probably better. And so we can look at it and expand this, and it'll actually say, well, initially it tried to inherit this and tried, like, look at this. This is a lot of stuff going on here. But ultimately it ended up as the Bangor's cursive, which is the Google font. And then it shows you, if you click on it, it tells you where to go. So this is really just pivotal today for your assignment, to understand how to navigate this tool. So that's why I'm taking tons of time to talk about it. Console is going to be more pointed to JavaScript, so we'll ignore that for now. Just focus on elements and computed. Okay, so now there's this really cool tool. It's called the device toolbar, okay? And you can toggle it with either Command-Shift-M or Control-Shift-M on PC. Or you can just literally click the icon. So I'm going to click it. And now what it does is it toggles what a device could look like. It kind of mimics a device. And in this case, I have it on iPhone 8. So I'm going to go change it to iPad. Okay, and I noticed that it's trying to be smart for me, and it's giving me a 25% view because my window is so tiny. I can override it and say, no, I want to have 100% of what an iPad looks like based on the pixel density and the viewport. So I'm going to increase my window, and you can actually see this is what an iPad, if I had an iPad, this is what it would look like. And notice there's a little gray circle. That is because it's now introduced touch. So I actually have to click and drag for this thing to work now, because it's got touch enabled, which is kind of interesting. So touch is enabled at this point. All right, so everybody, hopefully you're following along and understanding that there's a tool that I clicked on, toggle device toolbar, so you can toggle it off and on. And it pretends to be a device in the browser. Of course, we can go down to iPhone 7, or I think you can even open it up and go smaller, but we'll just stay with what we got right now. So this is going to be an iPhone 7. Patrick asks, for real world development, is the Chrome device emulator 100% reliable, or is it common practice to test out responsive web pages on actual devices? It's a very good question. The answer is absolutely not. So the device actually can cause many problems in the real world of development. But for what we're doing, it's really, really helpful. And helps you at least see where widths lie and like where they are. My favorite thing to do is on a Mac. Unfortunately for PC users, you don't have access to Xcode. But on Xcode, there's actually an iOS simulator. And that simulator actually runs the real operating system and builds the GUI correctly. So you can actually test on the Xcode simulator. And it's like 99% accurate. So if you have a Mac, you can install Xcode for free and use the simulator for free, and it's the best outside of actual devices. For Android devices, you're going to be in a world of hurt because there's millions of them. So, but understand that this is really just kind of a nice little tool to help you figure out in general what it's going to look like, but there is nothing better, to answer your question, Patrick, nothing better than the actual device. So the actual device is going to make you a better developer. Xcode is very slow, by the way, because it's just chugging RAM and CPU. It's because it's actually running operating systems, multiple. So yeah, you have to have a really nice computer to run Xcode at a normal rate. Awesome. Oh, thanks for that screenshot. That's really cool. Good notes there. So you might want to pin that. You can put that up there. Touche, Callum. Touche. You actually can use Xcode on Windows with VMware VirtualBox. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So these tools are all part of a bigger picture to help you understand how to write media queries. Like, it's so funny. Everything we're talking about is media queries, but we use all these tools to help us have a better view of what we're doing. So this tool is awesome. It's not 100% reliable, but it really will get us close to where we need to be. So at this point, if we're going to the iPad, because we have our viewport on, remember we have our viewport in our meta tag. It's trying to fill to the device width, so it's pretending like it's in a device. And so that's why it looks the way it does. All right, so let me go look at some code, and we can see how we can start approaching this layout together. So I'm going to share back to my virtual, man, words, Visual Studio Code. Okay, so at this point, we need to talk about set widths and how bad they can be for responsive layouts. So for example, I know that in general styles, we have a problem because we have set a width at 880px, right? So at 880px, we are now introducing a horizontal scroll bar. So this is worth jumping back, but I need you to see that 880px is a hard-coded pixel. So this is going to be one of your first little hurdles to get over that. And by the way we get over that is we use our escaping, or you can use just media queries with at nested bubbling. You can skin a cat so many ways with CSS. But in our case, I highly recommend just using this awesome stuff that we've already built, because why not? It works, and it's awesome. So I'm going to go to my container. I copied and pasted. I don't expect you to follow along at this point. This is me. I'm doing this now. You don't need to worry about following along. You just need to worry about absorbing knowledge at this point. Okay, so at media, tablet, phone. So let's say I want to say on tablet for container, I want my width to be 100%. Okay, so I want to be 100% of the width. And then for phone, we can goof around and say 50% and just see what happens. So I'm going to hit save on that. Let me check my compiler and make sure everything did good. It did do good. So remember, I'm using less, so my terminal just ran that as soon as I hit save because I'm using a watch call, right? So now let's go see what happened. Man, it might be just easier to share the desktop. Let me try the desktop. I'm like going crazy trying to organize this stuff. So you'll notice right here, my terminal ran. I'm going to zoom way in, don't worry, because I know it's crazy right now. Okay, so here's my website. I've introduced, I'm going to refresh my website, and I've introduced my 100%. So I'm coming down to this, and right there, see how it just jumps right there? I don't know if you guys can see that. I hope you can. So that jump right there is my media query getting recognized for my width. But you might be going, but Josh, I still see the horizontal scroll bar. And I'm going, you are super smart. And that's true, because right here, this image right here is now bloated beyond our content, right? So now I'm going to use my inspector tool. I'm going to go, what are you doing? So I look closer, there's top content, and there's an image class. And so I'm going, oh, I forgot. Or maybe you didn't know this in the first place, but images come in, and this image is 876 pixels. It's probably hard to see, but I'm telling you right now, it's 876 wide. Notice that I have not constrained any width on my image. So something that's really cool to do, I can actually take this out now. Let me go to the channel real quick. Is this okay? Can everybody see the giant screen? Is it okay? Just tell me the truth.
I'm seeing it all right.
Okay. I'm just worried about the resolution just being way too much.
It's readable, but the yeah, a little command plus wouldn't hurt.
Okay. No, that is exactly what I need to hear. Okay, so let me do that. You can do that in the console. So let me do this. There we go. Now we're living the dream. So inside of here, yeah, oh yeah. Slam to a Slim Jim. So right here, main content, middle image. The coolest thing about this dev tool is you can manipulate things, right in the tool. And by the way, I'm going to turn off this up here so we can see this in action. So I'm going to say width 100%. Now you're going to notice that not much changed here because I have the container at 800 pixels, right? So this doesn't look that much different. But now watch this. When I get down to my media query at 768, actually I don't have my media query, and now it's impossible to read. Sorry. So what I'm doing is I want to go in here to my image and find that image and change that image's width to 100% when it hits the tablet. So it was under main content less, right? Now now that I have my massive screen, let me show you a really good tip and trick. If you're using VS Code, it's this little icon up here. Okay, it lets you get double panes. Usually you can go to view and figure out screens, split editor. There it is right there. And you can do different screens. You have like 4 or 5. Every editor has this ability. Sublime, I don't need to go through the editors, but they all can do this. I highly, highly recommend that you always keep your less file open and your HTML so that you can actually read it. So over here is my HTML, right? And so I'm going to come down here, and there's middle image. So I can clearly see that there's a class that I can grab, right? Because you're going to be doing this in a couple hours, or in a couple, less than an hour here. And so you need to understand how to tackle these problems. And the way you tackle them is HTML first, leads to your selector on the right here. So main content last, and I'm going, okay, so if I want to manipulate this, I need to introduce my media query. So I always like to have mix-ins over here so I can just copy and paste. You see how nice that is to have this content on the left so you don't have to think about it a million times. And so now I'm going to say, okay, on tablet. So remember, tablet is 768. At 768 pixels, I'm going to kick into 100%. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it. Notice my terminal said looking good, so I don't have any errors. I'm now going to come back here. I'm going to refresh this page just to make sure I'm in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to watch. Let me introduce you to a really cool tool really quickly that is just a side note, but man, it's super helpful. It's a Chrome extension. It's called Window Resizer. Okay, highly recommend you get this just for sanity's purpose. You can actually type in and you can resize it based on the window or the viewport. Isn't that cool? So the viewport's where we're living with our breakpoints. So the window sometimes includes this sidebar right here and doesn't give you an accurate pixel. So if you go to viewport, it disregards the sidebar and only cares about what's inside the viewport, which is super helpful. So let me show you in the extensions So Chrome, more tools, extensions. You're going to have, it's weird, but I usually have to go down here and hit get more extensions. And it's going to be window resizer. So if I do this with you, I'm going to type in window resizer, and it's going to look just like this. This is my favorite plugin for resizing your window and getting accurate viewports. So you click it, add to Chrome. It might require a refresh, I'm not sure. But when you have it in there, it'll always be up here in your bar because that's what extensions do, right? Up here. And so if you click it, you can go into this and actually set the width on the left. So 768. I'm not concerned about the height, so I'll just say 768. I want it to be viewport, go. And now it shows me what 768 looks like. Notice that my image is now following the rules. Awesome. So now there's something else bleeding outside of here, okay? There's something else bleeding. Oh, there it is, the Great Idea logo. And so now I'm going to go up here and say, okay, how do I get this thing to stop bleeding into my content? So I'm going to zoom back out here because it's impossible for me to read. I know it sucks for you, but just bear with me for a second. So I'm going to inspect the element, and I found that it's under logo, and then I can see the box model is kind of laid out. So you can see the padding right there. You see that? But also I'm noticing that it's a flex item. And so I have to make sure that this thing is responding appropriately. So the problem is this navigation with this unordered list, I know it's really hard to see, but you can see up here. So pay attention up here to the box model. This has a set width as well. Notice that we have a width of 610. And so the problem with 610 is it's fixed. So we're going to start getting more problems. So we need to introduce more percent layouts on our tablet. Okay, so just so you know, this is the process that you will be going through for your project today. You're going to be attacking these elements with your inspect tool, learning about these elements, messing with values. So here's margin. So remember, top, right, bottom, left. So my left margin, I'm going to take it in. And because it's readjusting, it's coming in, it's looking really good. I'm getting way more room. But the problem is, so look, I'm really close. See how close I am now? We're getting closer with, so it's clearly something with this, but we're still just jetting out. And so really it's going to come down to this main header nav piece, like right here on this UL. This width needs to go either to a percent or a smaller pixel. It's up to you. So if I drop it down to, let's say like 300 or something. So now check it out. I've lost my horizontal scroll bar. So now I'm actually living the dream of the tablet breakpoint. Now, at this point, you know, it could be dangerous to say, well, it works, and I've lost the horizontal scroll bar. It's no longer there. I did my job. But look how squished everything is. It's very unappealing. And so what we want to do is we want to give ourselves some breathing room. Now, at this point, you're going, okay, now these are design concepts, Josh. These aren't like code concepts. But sorry to tell you, as a front-end developer, you need to have design concepts baked into your brain. You have to have that in your head. And so one thing is we want to have some breathability here. So what we could look at is we know that from the box model, we can use margin to give us some breathability, right? So if we inspect element and we look a little bit closer, we're finding that bottom content has no margin around it. So we could go in here and say, okay, margin, top and bottom don't need any margin, but let's go ahead and add 20px to each side. And so now with our inspector, we can go, oh, that looks a lot better. It's breathing a lot more. And so then what we could do is say, okay, let's find main content, bottom content in our code. So here's main content, bottom content. There it is. I'm going to copy and paste my tablet down here, and I'm going to say margin. And at this point, I could do a hard hard-coded pixel because everything else is hard-coded, and we're using adaptive layout. When we do it tomorrow, we will do percent at this point. But right now, I want you to understand that we can't actually do this because we're only focusing on the tablet layout. Okay, now this is great, but remember, I went up here and did a bunch of crap. And so if I refresh this page, this thing's gonna blow up, but that's okay. So that blew up, but look, now we have a nice gutter over here. So this would be acceptable and readable. It's a little hard to read the text on an iPad, so we could increase the font size as well. But these are the kind of things I want you to grapple with. Like, these are the kind of things that I want you. Nobody is going to have the same two looking websites by the end of this challenge. That's how unique this is. But what I want you to do is to challenge yourself to get rid of the horizontal scroll bar on tablet. And then on phone, it's even worse, right? Like, look at that. And it's mostly because of this header. But once we get that header under control, now our phone, wow, this is almost impossible to read, right? It's really hard. And so what we could do is say, well, we need to get these in single columns. So services, product, and vision should be in their own column. So what we can do is we can look at this and say, I'm going to bust out of this now because it's so hard to see. So I'm going to take my dock out here. And I'm going to go in responsive mode and bust into like an iPhone 7 or something because it's much more manageable. So just to repeat, I went up to the responsive toggle, hit it, changed it to iPhone 7. Okay, you might go, why iPhone 7? Well, I always try to go to the oldest technology. So actually, I just hit edit right there. So edit. This opens up emulated devices. iPhone 5 is crazily, I don't know why, it's like the new Nokia phone, but it won't die. An iPhone 4 even will give you the smallest resolutions possible. So I'm going to turn those on, and then I'm going to go over here and enable that. So iPhone 4 is even smaller. Look how crazy that is as far as resolution goes in a viewport. So iPhone 4 is really a great place to be if you want to be super safe across all Android and iPhone or Apple devices. Okay, so let's look at tackling this really quick, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. So we have text content. Get this out. I'll just move over here. I'm going to zoom in. Okay. And then this one, I wonder if I can zoom out. No, I'll just make everything big. Okay. So we have bottom content. And right now we're displaying flex, and our items are automatically being good items, right? We have text content. But at this point, text content, we probably want to be with 100%, right? We want it to fill like the whole thing. So let's go look at what that looks like. So I'm going to say width 100%. And notice nothing changes because it's a flex item. It's stuck inside of bottom content. And so we could mess around with our flex box and justify content. We could introduce no wrap. And so it wouldn't wrap. And let's talk about, that's why I'm like, this project has nothing new in it, but you have to grapple with these kind of problems. And so for me to be able to grapple with one of these, I'm going to go, okay, what am I looking at? Well, let me walk through this with you and just say, okay, I'm going to give you a link, by the way, to handle this stuff, because otherwise it's going to kill you to try to remember all this stuff, since I know that you've just got a bunch of this stuff. So right here, I think is the best. I think this is one of the best guides. It's updated constantly. So 2017 is pretty legit. It was originally written like a long time ago. But understanding, maybe you're forgetting a little bit about your Flexbox. And so remember, Flexbox has containers and then items in the container, okay? And so because this layout's using Flexbox, you need to make sure you're following the rules in addition to your media queries, okay? So Flexbox container, now our properties for our containers are in this order. So by default, Flex items are laid out in the source order. So we're not going to mess with this stuff right here, but we can actually go down here and say, okay, here's an interesting thing. For the containing thing, by default, Flex items will all try to fit onto one line. You can change that and allow items to wrap as needed with this property. So we could say, okay, let's do flex wrap, no wrap, and see what happens. On our element style here. Oh, geez. Bottom content. Where are you? There you are. And so no wrap's not helping us right now because we've set our width 100% and our flex items are not moving around because we don't have our content justified. So we have to look at our flex flow. Where is it? I was just looking at our align content. I can't remember if it's stretch or not on this piece, on the bottom content. Justify content, space around. Yeah, we want to go to align content. Oops. I think it's stretch. No, not items. Content. Okay, so yeah, that's what we wanted to do. And so now we've got our items going out to the full length of what they can do. Inside of these content items, we have p tags that are still following rules inside of h tags, inside of this item as well. And so I wonder if we introduce our p tag here. Can't remember if we can overwrite this one. H4 is not doing it. Where's the padding coming from? Bottom content. So the margin on this thing is controlling that. It looks like we're being controlled by something even bigger. Let's find out where that is. Container. Aha. So that's why this thing feels crazy right now. Because I forgot. Oh yeah, I'm a dummy. I put width 50%. I was like, what? I'm going crazy right now. Sorry for that. So you could actually increase your width, and then you can actually get the styles. I was like, I swear that should work, but it's because I was silly, and I put 50% on my container. If you recall, on my general styles, that was my bad. I shouldn't have done that. So don't do that in your project. Remember, this code is not coming with you. This is just a little walkthrough. So with that in place, my 50% should be looking like this, and I can start messing with this. So yeah, notice that I'm when I'm zoomed in here, you can double click out. You have to make sure your viewport's in and you're using your device width. So at this point, it's just media queries, inspect element, understanding Flexbox, not shooting yourself in the foot with a width 50% on a container. That was really dumb of me, just on an accident there. And that's going to be what you have to tackle. And so I want to take the next couple minutes here and address any questions. So let me turn off the giant screen here, and I'll just go back to my code. So if we want to look at anything in the code. Okay, so let me see. Please go over Flexbox again. Flexbox, if you are struggling with Flexbox, like I was struggling with what I thought was Flexbox, but really I was goofing with the dang width and it was killing me. So that was user error. That was my fault. To understand Flexbox, I'm going to give you, I'll give you that link. I'll put it in the YouTube video as well. This one is so good, everybody. This is like the best one. So that link is gold. So go get refamiliar with Flexbox because it's used throughout the layout. Now, you might go, oh, by the way, what Luis just posted is my favorite Wes Boss. Like I love Wes Boss, and he's a very friendly Canadian developer, and he does such a great job. So go look at that as well if you need it. The stuff that Luis posted is going to have like video tutorials. So I would say it's very worth your time because they're very short and succinct. So I'd say it's awesome. And thanks, Igor, for putting in another reference to learn Flexbox for free. So the hard thing is, like, usually you should have had this information given to you in the same week, and then this thing would have been the next piece. So you might be taking an hour of your day today to relearn Flexbox, and that is okay. Just so you know, like that, you are going to be relearning things over and over. Okay, so Big Tony, I just want to know what you just did. So what I just did is my container, I shot myself in the foot and I put a width of 50%. So that's what I did. That's why nothing was working. Because on phone, it was minimizing everything to 50%. So that's why I did that. As far as the Flexbox stuff goes, I didn't want wrapping to occur. And again, I'm not going to take time to address Flexbox here. It's too big to address in 10 minutes. So you're just going to have to go read those links. Because all I did was I said no wrap so that it wouldn't wrap and it would go 100%. So that's what I did. So this is going to be a ton of UI moving around, making sure the horizontal scroll bar is gone, and making sure that everything fits. So hard thing is like the TAs. The TAs are going to get a lot of questions from you, and you're going to go, oh man, this looks ugly, or I don't even know what this is doing. There's a scroll bar. Understand that the TAs don't have a solution in hand. Like, this is up to you to make it look how you want it to. The only thing that's going to make it look really good is you don't have a horizontal scroll bar at 768 and phone. Okay. Step 1, relearn Flexbox. Step 2, do responsive web design. I think that's very wise, Richard. If you're not feeling confident with your Flexbox, very wise. By the way, you could get by this assignment with very little Flexbox, but the parts that do have it will make you go insane if you don't know it. This week's curriculum gives confidence that Vanilla.js functions this keyword. Good. I'm glad you have more confidence in that. Why isn't the main content .less nested? Let's see. Why isn't the main content .less nested? I don't understand that. Can you explain more of that and I'll readdress it? Would you walk through the inspect element style piece again slowly? Sure, I can do that. Yeah, the repo link is just a couple scrolls up. Let me go get it. Here. Oh yeah, there you go. I'm going to pin it right now. I'm going to put it in the instruction pin for the week. Just so you guys know, we're going to be moving into a much more robust training kit style delivery of curriculum, and it will be within your lifetime in the cohorts. It's coming, and this stuff will all be inside of it. Okay, let me see. Oh, someone already did pin it, actually. They did pin the pre-processing. So if someone else just wants to pin this, that'd be great. I'm going to put this inside of the content for the man brain. Like, trying to type, talk, and pin something, I'm just not that good at that stuff. All right, so we're going to go over here. I'm going to edit message on day 4. Let's see. Day 2, day 3, responsive web intro. After the optional reading, I'm going to provide the link. Okay. It's pinned in there now. Okay, coming back down to the questions. Give me a second. Oh, by the way, totally recommend Flexbox Froggy. It's part of our curriculum for the HTML intro week, so it's really big. Okay, let me go back to the questions. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So Tommy, I'll address Tommy's, and I'll come back to the inspect element. So main content less file in the project does not seem to follow the practice of nesting less elements. Okay, let me see. I guess I just don't understand that. Oh, right. Yes. Okay, I see what you're saying. So yeah, all I did was import the less files themselves. I didn't actually nest these before. I just wanted to get all the files together. I recommend that you take the code that you had from last time and put it in here with all the nesting that you did. I would just recommend using your other project and grabbing the mixins file and the viewport, but this stuff works just fine, by the way. But if you wanted to take the time to start nesting, so it's like main content, middle image, go for it. Some people have already introduced some BEM naming conventions, which really reduces a lot of nesting. That's fine too. So it's really personal preference at this point, but you have access to the less mixins file now. That's the whole reason this project even exists, is because mixins exists now, and then within mixins you have your escaping pre-built. By the way, the stretch for this one is just to make it look really pretty. Like, it's going to be really hard to do that. It's just going to take time. I mean, not really hard, it's just time. So, okay, let me go over inspecting an element and adjusting design again, really slowly, because I think that's really smart to do. So I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, so right now, remember I toggled this, so you can toggle your device toolbar, or you can just have it here. In this case, it's really small. So like iPhone 5 would be like this, and saying you can't even apply that dimension. It's impossible. So that's why you have to use this tool. And then you have
sorry, we don't see the screen.
Oh, my bad. I thought I was on the display thing. Thank you for saying that. Okay, we're going full desktop mode again. And I know it's hard to see, so I'll zoom in. So the problem is I'm zooming in, and then the browser's smart, and then it zooms in with me, and then it skews everything I'm doing, just so you know. So pay attention to what I'm doing, but not the result, because if I'm at 0, it looks like this, right? It's not real, but I have to zoom in for you guys so everything gets jacked. So just understand that. Okay, so if I want to, on phone, below 400, because right, I'm 320 pixels, correct? So at 320 pixels, my breakpoint of 400 covers me, right? So if I'm over here and I have my mixin at 400, right, phone, I know that if I were to come in here and make a change on phone, right, phone, I'm not going to put it in here though. Well, I guess I'll put it in just to say 5 pixels. We're going to drop the margin by 5 px. As soon as I hit save, I check my terminal to make sure there's no errors. You should do that every time, by the way. Come back here, refresh the page. Of course, I'm zoomed in, so it's going to look weird. Let me zoom out for a second to show you that it does look better. The margins are a little bit easier. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to right-click, inspect, and then it's going to open up the inspector on the HTML elements. But notice that I have my CSS elements over here. Okay. So I didn't realize I could draw. This is awesome. So inspect element opens up. Oh, that thing is just not good enough. There we go. Oh man, I don't even know. So we'll go back to this one because the screen's just too big. over here, this is the default styles that are coming in from all the H1s, right? And so if I'm coming back to my code here, and I inspect this element, this piece is all right here and right here. And I can manipulate these values at will in the browser. So I can introduce margin bottom. Notice over here, this is changing as I manipulate this value. So if some of you are going, I get this, cool, go, go to lunch or go hit up the GitHub repo and get started. Those of you that still need more of this, just stay with me for a little bit longer. So this is updating your content. And then what I will do is if I find that something is appeasing to me and I'm going, yeah, I like 84 pixels bottom. What I'll do is I'll take that. I'll then go to my code. Let's see, how do I kill my annotations? There's a clear button. There we go. So I will take my code and I'll find out where that selector was. So remember, it was all my H1, H2, whatever's, right? All these guys. So now I know that on phone, I want to have margin bottom 84px, right? Because I already messed with it. But if I wanted to be like sticking to the rules of, well, it is exactly margin bottom, so I'm good to go. But I don't want to have that on my desktop, right? That'll look really bad. So I need to make sure, and I'll just go borrow a media query that I already built. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say margin bottom. So now if I hit save, I watch my compiler, looks good. Open up the browser. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to refresh the browser and see if it maintains its style. And it did. So now my 84 pixels is working correctly. That is the process that's going to save you some sanity. So number one, inspect element. Let me write this down. Number one, inspect element. Number two, adjust CSS in the dev tool, dev inspector. Number three, copy new styles into your actual project, because that's important. If you don't, then you won't see a change. Number four, save and watch terminal for updates. Number five, refresh browser and start over again. That, my friends, is really like how you can approach every problem today if you just do those 5 steps. Inspect element, adjust CSS, copy new styles, save and watch, refresh browser, start over again. I know it's explicit, but it's a great way to get into brain activity. Okay, let's see. I want to make sure I answer any big questions before we end. It should be my desktop at this point, right? Okay, yeah. Can we save these changes from the browser? So yeah, Shabana, that's exactly the steps that we need to do. Okay, so good luck. I am going to be unavailable because I'm writing curriculum for tomorrow and challenges for tomorrow. So the TAs are 100%. Tomorrow we're doing fluid layouts. So it's percent-based layouts. We're going to take this and make it completely fluid. So today I want you to focus on your breakpoints, and then tomorrow we're going to introduce percent-based layouts. We'll do a QA at the normal time. I'll be back. But from now until the QA, I will be unavailable on purpose, and the TAs will be available. So that's the plan for today. This project could take you all day. And then for some of you that really understand media queries, it's still going to take some time. Like even me, I'm really comfortable with this stuff. And it would take me some time to do it just because it's a lot. So understand that. Yes, that is the challenge. That is the challenge. So if you want me to I should overview this with you really quickly, which is for this challenge, no new code has been introduced, but many new concepts are indeed part of this to accomplish the task. Concepts required to complete the task. How to use media queries, which we've done. Min and max width. Now, of course, min width's going to be held off till tomorrow, but you can use it if you want. Layout changes based on device width. We talked about viewport and did that. and percent versus fixed layouts. So that's everything we talked about with like the horizontal scroll bar. So your task is to build an adaptive website, meaning that it just has breakpoints. It's not percent based. This project is very open-ended and meant to challenge what you learned today. The correct solution will have breakpoints at the directed values, but how it looks is up to you. Remember that an adaptive layout updates at breakpoints only. So don't worry about making it super smooth yet. We'll do that tomorrow. So it's very open-ended. You could all have very different projects by end of today. But the goal is that you're really grappling with the problem of using breakpoints and adjusting elements to make it look good. So this is going to be tough because it's a concept. Okay. Thank you all very much. I know it was a lot to take in. Reach out to your TAs. I'll stay on here for like 2 minutes to answer any more questions, and I'll see you at the Q&A. Good luck.